So everybody's talking about the wasted expenditure by USAID, but do you know what percentage of our federal budget is USAID? 0.2%. You see how small that is? It's nothing. By the time you see me go through all the other expenditure, wasted expenditure, you're going to lose your mind.
Just what's going on with the culture. How in the world could it be that the biggest, greatest fighting entity in the world cannot audit itself until 2018? What's wrong? The fact is we probably wasted hundreds of billions of dollars at the Pentagon through the years through poor management. Is that correct? Well, that'd be a low estimate, would it not?
So how can we possibly cut spending and make government more efficient if we don't even know where the money is going?
In 2001, Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld announced that the Department of Defense had lost more than $2.3 trillion.
Track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
At this time, the entire federal budget was only $1.8 trillion, which meant that the military had basically just oopsied away more than a year's worth of the government's entire bankroll.
Look at all this cash, bruh. What would you call it?
The public was furious, to say the least, and rumors quickly started circling about where this money ended up. Fortunately for Rumsfeld and the entire military senior brass, the public announcement of the missing money was made on a very opportune day, September 10th.
Move! Move! Clear! Move!
Yes, just one day later, what would have been the news story of the year was immediately overshadowed by the event of the decade, and public opinion about the military flipped on a dime from outrage to adoration. The $2.3 trillion hole in the military's budget was almost forgotten by everybody.
There's a lot of controversy about Elon Musk, and let's just dispel some of it right at the start. He is not a freelancer. He was appointed a government official. Donald Trump, by an executive order, created the Department of Government Efficiency, and he made Elon Musk the head of it, along with Ramaswamy, who now has resigned. Elon Musk has statutory authority.
Is there anything you've told Elon Musk he cannot touch?
I'll tell him to go here, go there. He does it. He's got a very capable group of people. Very capable. They know what they're doing. They'll ask questions and they'll see immediately as somebody gets tongue-tied that they're either crooked or don't know what they're doing. We have very smart people going in, so I've instructed him go into education, go into military, go into other things as we go along.
You know, if you were to guess, how much total money per year goes into U.S. nonprofits per year? Total revenue per year, money that comes in. What do you think that number is? That number is roughly $2.68 trillion as of 2020, which means it's probably around $3 trillion. If you look at this chart, you'll notice what's happening every year from 98 till today. So you may say, Pat, where are you going with this? Who cares about nonprofits? Where do they get their money from? Who gives them the money? You may be thinking it's average billionaires, rich people, regular people give them money, churches, all. That's what it is, right? Well, let's see. When you look at the numbers, according to 2023 reports from Urban Institute, government agencies contributed 29% of nonprofit revenue in 2022. Let me see it again. Government agencies, 29% in 2022. Why are government agencies putting money into nonprofits? And who is starting nonprofits? Like the Clinton Foundation? Are you saying like that kind of stuff and people put money into it and then there's side favors, but you can kind of funnel the money through and kind of owe the favors and you can be, you're really saying they're doing that? Yes, 29%. And if you go a little bit deeper, that number is around $880 billion as of 2020. Okay, so that's that part. Stay with me here. So again, it's important to know this because when you think about USAID, we think about 0.2% of the federal budget. It's only $40 to $70 billion and a smart part of the NGO boom. This is an NGO boom. Oh my God, we should start our own NGO because we get money from the US government. When you think about this chart from Statista, this shows changes in the number of non-governmental organizations with consultative status with ECOSOC from 48 to 2010. In 1948, we only had 40. Then it went to 180, then 724, now 3382 as of 2010. If you look at this chart, it tells you it is so popular today to start an NGO. Why? if 29% of the money is coming to you and they're not really that worried what you do with the money, the level of accountability isn't that high. Oh my God, we found an incredible loophole to get money from the government, do whatever we want to do. And then when we break down the federal budget, this is what we notice. Let's continue on the wasted expenditure. You'll notice 24% goes to health insurance, 21% Social Security, 13% defense, 13% is interest on debt, 8% benefits for veterans and federal retirees, 7% economic security program, 5 is education, and the rest falls under transportation, natural resources, agriculture, science, medical, law enforcement, international, and all other. Over the last 20 years, fiscal years, it has had an estimated $2.7 trillion in what? Improper payment. $2.7 trillion in improper payments? Yes. What does it look like every year? This is what it looks like of improper payments. 2003, it was $35 billion in improper payments. Last year was $235 in proper payments. 2 years ago was 281, record-breaking years, back to back to back in improper payments. And if we break that down by different areas of improper payments, under Medicare, it's $51 billion of improper payments. Where did they go? We don't know. Medicaid, $50.3 billion. Federal Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, $43 billion improper payments. You paid for it, by the way. Earned income tax credit, $22 billion. Paycheck protection programs, loan forgiveness, another $19 billion improper payments. And all of the programs, another $50 billion in improper payments. So this continues. Then we hear these stories of the Pentagon, okay? Pentagon racks up $35 trillion in accounting changes in 1 year, and they cannot account for 63% of $4 trillion of assets. DoD regularly buys parts and equipment it does not need because it can't keep track of parts and equipment it already owns. So they've already bought so many different things. They don't even know who's taking care of it. Like, we have a lot of equipment, right? Imagine somebody has to sit there and write down all the cameras we have, the lenses we have, the equipment we have. They're not even keeping track of it. So they keep buying stuff. They don't even know what they have in their inventory. Think about how crazy that is. Again, you and I are paying for it. The Pentagon has failed.
Doge moving too fast.
No, I think the issue is they're not whacking enough. There's this concept in private equity when you get a bankrupt company and you go in
like the
there,
zero thing?
you cut 20% more than your initial read.
Oh, wow.
And then you find, like a pool of mercury, the organization gels back together again. Always cut deeper, harder when there's fat and waste. The FAA, it's not the people. The code is cobalt. It's from the 60s. It needs CapEx put into it for the technology to be upgraded to make it safer. Fat like a chicken. All of these agencies are like big fat chickens dripping over barbecues of fat. This is the best barbecue I've ever seen, but I don't think it's happening fast enough. They're not cutting enough. Keep slashing, keep hacking while you have a 24-month mandate before the midterms. Cut.
He's right.
More cutting. Believe me, it's going to work out just great. Everybody should be happy
with the nuclear codes, cut them too?
Cut everything. Because if you don't see what they're doing and they can't show you that they're adding value, you whack.
Pentagon started doing audits 7 years ago. They have never once passed one. And even in April of 2023, Jon Stewart is interviewing a lady on C-SPAN. I think it is C-SPAN. Maybe it is C-SPAN. You got to see it. Saying, hey, how is it that you guys are failing audits? And she says, well, what you don't know is there's a big difference between, first of all, instead of me acting it out because you may think we're exaggerating, I just want you to watch this clip with Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart cannot believe what this lady is saying. Watch this clip for yourself.
A lot of waste, fraud, and abuse within a system.
Audits and waste, fraud, and abuse are not the same thing. So let's decompose these pieces.
Please educate me on
Sure.
what
So an audit is exactly what you just described, which is, do I know what was delivered to which place?
Right.
The ability to pass an audit or the fact that the DoD has not passed an audit is not suggestive of waste, fraud, and abuse. That is completely false right there. So
what is
now it's a question of, it's suggestive that we don't have an accurate inventory that we can pull up of what we have where. That is not the same as saying we can't do that because waste, fraud, and abuse has occurred.
So in my world,
yeah,
that's waste.
How is that waste?
If I give you $1 billion and you can't tell me what happened to it, that to me is wasteful. That means you are not responsible. But if you can't tell me where it went, then what am I supposed to think? And when there has been reporting, I mean, this is not, look, I'm not saying this is on you and that you caused this, but I think it's a tough argument to
I'm pretty
make
sure I
that
didn't cause it.
an $850 billion budget to an organization that can't pass an audit and tell you where that money went, like, I think most people would consider that somewhere in the realm of waste, fraud, or abuse, because they would wonder why that money isn't well accounted for. And especially when they see food insecurity on military bases, and they see...
You want to talk about that? Because that's a good... we should be talking... I mean,
Well,
I'm trying to understand where you're trying to go, other than the dollars, which really bother you.
I think it doesn't really bother me. I think it's all connected.
Okay.
I think
tell
when
me, tell me that story.
I have weekly meetings. Where did this money go here? What do you mean? Where did this money go to here? I need a report on this. Well, here's where I went. Okay, great. No, we're such a big organization, all this stuff. You know what it leads to? When I was in the Army, and I was a Hummer mechanic, I would ask my sergeant, my motor pool sergeant Braxton, if you remember him, send this to him. I would say, Sergeant Braxton, this part we just paid $2,000 for on the Humvee. We can buy this elsewhere for $150. Why are we paying $2,000? And he would say, the government always overpays for products. Ready? $4,000 you and I spend soap dispensers on Air Force planes. $4,000. Boeing overcharged Air Force for soap dispensers by nearly 8,000%, charging more than 80 times the commercial price. Just don't worry about it, approve it. $4,000. Let me continue. Boeing overcharging Air Force. The Department of Defense Inspector General found that Boeing overcharged the Air Force by nearly $1 million on various products for the C-17 military transport aircraft. Raytheon, the Department of Justice, announced that Raytheon will pay nearly $1 billion to resolve an investigation exposing the company for overcharging on government contract. $1 billion. Finally, they're catching it. In the 1980s, you know how much you were spending on toilet seats in the 1980s? $640 for toilet seats. This better be Maradona's golden toilet seat that we're talking about. But no, it wasn't golden. $7,600 for a coffee maker that the Air Force spent designed for certain aircraft. Disappearing $21 trillion from 1998 to 2015 in unsupported accounting adjustments were found in the Department of Defense books, far exceeding the entire annual U.S. GDP. Let me say that one more time so you don't think I made a mistake. $21 trillion between 98 and 2015. 17 years, $21 trillion. The $2 billion zombie program. Pentagon continued to fund a $2 billion satellite program for years after it had already been canceled. It's been canceled, but they keep spending $2 billion. $1,280 paper clips, not made out of gold, not made out of platinum, regular paper clips. You and I are paying $1,280 for it. This is again the Pentagon. The F-35 fighter jet fiasco cost over $1.7 trillion, making it the most expensive weapon system ever. What the hell do you need to spend $1.7 trillion? Despite this, the aircraft has been plagued with issues from software bugs to parts shortages. The invisible buildings, the Pentagon spent millions on constructing buildings in Afghanistan that were never used or were built in areas where they served no purpose. $300,000 camouflage that didn't work. Pentagon paid the NFL for patriotism $6.8 million. At least this is a little bit of, hey, sell their dream about what it is to be a soldier here. Sell us how awesome the country is. I get that part, $6.8 million, but I don't get all the other stuff that we're talking about here. And by the way, when you talk about this stuff, the Beltway bandits, you know what we found? You ever heard of Booz Allen Hamilton? And you hear about, did you know that Snowden, I don't know which one of these names used to work at Booz Allen Hamilton. Did you know John McAfee, I think, worked at Booz Allen Hamilton? Like if you worked at this consulting firm, it's amazing, right? Do you know out of their revenue every year, say they do $10 billion a year, you know what percentage of their revenue comes from the government? Contracts, you ready? Not 5%, not 10%, not 20%, 97% is all coming from the U.S. government. That means Booz Allen Hamilton, without the government contracts, they rely on the government. You ever heard of Lockheed Martin? What percentage do you think is coming from government contracts? 99%. Raytheon did a little bit better. They're at 48% in 2022, and in 2024, they were 53.3%, which means they have some business they're doing outside of the government. All right, next one is Medicare and Medicaid, which is 25%. If you look at this chart from 1970 till today, we went from $7.5 billion to now $1 trillion, and it's just grown exponentially. And by the way, to simplify the whole thing, Medicare is for old people, like my dad. Medicaid is for poor people. But if you look at Medicaid and Medicare, guess what you notice? Both of them are climbing. The charts are right next to each other. I'm sure you see this, but let's see if they got anything going on here. So this is why Doge is on fire. This is why so many people are excited to see what Doge is going to be doing. And Doge Aid search Medicare agency payment system for fraud. And while they're doing this, a judge is like, wait a minute, we're not going to give you access to any of this stuff so you can see what fraud we're doing or wasted expenditure we have. Judge named Engelmeyer is like, no, I'm not going to let you go through, but unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about it. They're going to get access to this stuff.
This Department of Government Efficiency is not a cabinet agency. He does not have to be approved by Congress. And only is going to last till July 4th, 2026. It's not a permanent agency. But he has the same power or lack of such as the National Security Advisor, who does not have to be confirmed by the U.S. Senate. He's more legitimate, or he has more statutory legitimacy than earlier presidential advisors like Harry Hopkins, who moved into the White House under the FDR administration, or Bernard Baruch, who basically ran 2 world wars in terms of domestic production under Woodrow Wilson and FDR. So let's just dispel the idea that he's doing anything unusual. As far as the executive orders that created the Doge program and eliminated USAID, that was perfectly legal in itself. AID was created by John F. Kennedy in 1961 by an executive order. There was a statutory direction for the president to disperse foreign aids into a comprehensive body, but it didn't say USAID. He could do whatever he wanted. And so Donald Trump has decided to end autonomous USAID and fold it into the State Department for disaster relief or poverty relief or famine relief. But let's get straight what Elon Musk is trying to do. He's going through all of these agencies and finding waste and fraud, and he has executive authority to do so. The Democrats are suing on the principle that they have approved funds for some of these agencies, and Donald Trump is not spending them.
Remember when that one scene where the guy says, "What do you want?" You know what the American people said? Accountability. We want to know what you have here. We want to know what you're doing with our money. That's all it is.